This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
The final hour of 9 to noon. Very happy to be joined by one of our favorites, John Hynes, coach of the Minnesota Wild. John, it's Paul Allen. Good morning.
Hey, how you doing, my man?
All right, all righty. And tough one last night against one of the best in the game, the Vegas Golden Knights. Would you qualify, John? Would you qualify your job as stressful?
No, I wouldn't qualify it as stressful. I think it's a job that requires a ton of competitiveness, right? There's always good, there's bad, there's you're always kind of on the hunt to keep the train on the tracks and keep it rolling. And sometimes when it hits a bump in the road, it's getting it back on and making sure it's up and running quick.
Well, the reason I crafted it that way was, say there is an element of stress to it, or like you said, the competitiveness, the standings, these teams never lose. You're trying to get players back, stuff like that. If it becomes exhausting at times, what do you do with your time when you're away from the job, like on a day like today, to counteract those feelings?
Yeah, I think I think exercise is a big part of it, to be honest with you. I like to, exercise. I think it clears your mind and gets you, your energy going. And I think your thought process of, kind of taking all the different things, right? Of your roster, managing the players coming back, getting ready for the competition, managing your own team's psyche. So a lot of things go into it. So a little bit of exercise. Usually go back and do a bunch of video work. Might be talk with your coaches. Might be talk with a few players. But it's good. And then there's times where there's some hours in the day where you totally get away from it, which is good too.
That's awesome. And important, obviously. And sometimes people don't see the forest for the trees because they're just so wrapped up in something that matters to you and a lot of people. And I understand that. You said yesterday, Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek will resume skating soon. So, how many regular season games are you hoping to get from them before the postseason?
I wish I could give you an answer to that. I really don't know, other than the fact, it's a daily or every other day kind of updates from the training staff. At this point in their rehab, it's really up to those guys. Sometimes there's a plan. And we think that plan is going to go forward, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it takes a little bit of a turn the other way. So at this point in time, I don't have any I can't speculate on any how many games, right, or where that's at. Just in the fact that they are progressing in a positive way, and then we'll go from there.
And you guys are so squared away with training and strength and conditioning and decisions and stuff like that. But we've talked about this before. I mean, it's questions for them, but since I'm talking to you, you obviously have a handle on knowing how badly they want to play and just how badly those two probably want to jump back into this mix and try to turn a current frown upside down. Is that fairly put?
Yeah, for sure. It's having done this long enough when players are out, at any point in the season, it is hard on them. They're away from the team. They want to play. That's what they love to do. Eki and Kirill, certainly have been off for a long time. They're really putting a lot of hard work in, but they for sure want to come back and help the team and get back and doing what they truly love, which is be able to play the games. But I give them credit. They're doing a really good job of working the best that they can, and have the right mindset that when they do get back, that they're going to be able to jump in and be effective guys for us.
Washington here tomorrow night. They have the most points in the NHL. You guys, over the course of the year, most recently would be a couple of Mondays ago against the Kings after he had a rough one against the Blues. You guys have been pretty good this year responding to adversity. What do you expect tomorrow night?
I don't expect anything different. I think that our guys are, they take it personal when obviously we don't win a game, and I think at this time of year, I think you need to know the identity of your group, the resiliency of your group, the toughness of your group, because it is an emotional time of year, as you said earlier. Like, you want to win. You understand at this time of year, it's points and winning to continue to put yourself in a really good spot. So, with that being said, it's a day away today, treatments and things like that. Regroup, come back with the mindset. We got to present a plan to the guys, and and we all got to get in the right mindset to be able to win a hockey game tomorrow.
How many years did you coach with the Devils? Was that 5?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So whether it's 5 with the Devils, the time with Nashville, or your time here with Alexander Ovechkin here tomorrow night, it's a cliched question. I just want to hear your answer because you had to have played him a million times when you were with the Devils, when you were coaching there, man. What's it like coaching against Alexander Ovechkin?
Well, it's always a challenge because he's obviously one of the greatest goal scorers ever to play the game. So you have to be cognizant of that, of a lot of his tendencies of where he is on the ice, where he gets the scoring chances from, understanding we can't give him easy looks or looks where he can get his shot off. You got to try to rush some of those situations. But the other part is, it's not just the goal scoring. Like, he's a big, strong guy. He's competitive on the puck. He's physical at times. So, he's a generational player for a reason, and all those things contribute to what make him hard to play against.
Over the course of time, maybe back to Gretzky, but now with Ovechkin, or maybe Sidney Crosby when he was, atop his game, and you know a lot about that. Have you ever come across players who go to stargazing a little bit during games? Where they're like, wow, I grew up watching this guy, now I'm playing against him. He's unbelievable.
You know what it is? Sometimes, like when I was in New Jersey, it was a rebuilding team, and you did have a lot of younger guys or first-year guys in the league, or maybe guys that were kind of up and down. They were like, really good American League players, and they came up and they were guys that you were counting on to play in the NHL in that situation. I found it more with those types of guys versus, say a team like ours where there's more veteran players and guys that have been around the league. But I think sometimes it is a little bit more with some of the younger guys than it is with veteran guys that have already gone through that experience playing against those guys.
John Hynes, coach of the Minnesota Wild, 9 to noon. The Capitals are at XL Energy Center tomorrow night, 7 o'clock on KFAN. Gus Bus, your goaltender, was the league's top star last week. Until the troops are fortified, John, what's the importance of him stealing some points? Because he's been quite good of late. Even in that loss Monday to Dallas, I thought he was pretty good. But having your goalie steal some games, what do you think?
Yeah, it's important. I think that this time of year, it's you need to have guys. You could say him a Flower. Like when you talk about guys that you count on, when they're in the net for 60, right? They're the whole game. So I think at this point in time, goaltending is very important. I think Gus has done a good job. I think Flower played well last night for us too. So as we move forward and you get into these games and the points and things matter, goaltending plays a big part of it. And I think that, we're in good shape with that department for sure.
And John, if you say mostly after games, sometimes that you guys have had plenty of chances to score, but aren't closing on them, how does one coach that?
Well, I think a lot of times you have to. It's a good question. There's several ways to go about it. Some of it is, you're showing and talking about the scoring chances, and sometimes it's a good save. But there's other times, is there maybe a little bit of a better play? Can we do something better than we did? So I think a lot of times it's fine tuning. If you're not getting a lot of scoring chances, usually there's a process leading up to that isn't allowing you to get into those areas. Then when you get into those areas, Sometimes it's a great save. Sometimes it winds up being, it could have been a little bit more of a release, a better screen, little bit more middle lane drive. There's always little components that you want to tweak and continue to move forward with from that perspective.
Johansson got one for you last night. Is getting him going a major X factor to this equation? And what are you seeing with his game?
Yeah, I think Marcus has played well here down the stretch. I think his skating is a factor. He's been competitive on the puck. But yeah, like Joe's playing, he's playing some big minutes for us. He's playing some important minutes for us. So, you'd like to see him get rewarded for his hard work. And also, I think it's important for our team that everybody chips in. Like we have to do it by committee. And as I kind of said earlier, like the true meaning of a team, for us right now is we have to do it collectively with a group effort.
Just a couple more here for John Hynes, coach of the Wild. Marcus Foligno. Now that Foligno, beloved Moose, has missed 5 of them, where are you seeing the impact of him not playing?
Well, Moose brings a certain element to the team. One, I think he's an emotional leader for us. In his, in the locker room, he's a big, energetic, vocal guy. So he brings that emotional energy as a leader for our team on the bench, in the locker room. And then I would say leading into the game, it's very similar. Like he's a hard player to replace in the sense that he does bring a strong physical presence. I think he's been very good. He's done a good job on the penalty kill for us this year. He's a big, strong body that can get over pucks. He can drag a team into the fight a little bit with some physical play. So there's lots of components to him that when he is out of the lineup, you do miss.
When he doesn't play, say he's a heart and soul guy for the team, and the way you described that's what I thought of. Do you notice teams taking liberties, either with chances that they take, maybe as a collective unit, say offensively, or maybe little runs at players they otherwise wouldn't take if he were playing?
I don't see that as much. I think just because of the way that our team is built. Now, Moose for sure is a deterrent. But I don't necessarily see. You have guys like Bogosian, Middleton, Hartman, Trennan. Like we have a lot of guys that are big, strong, physical guys. They can answer the bell if needed. But I think sometimes where Moose comes into it is he can ignite a team into. With a big hit, or he could hammer one of their top guys or one of their bigger defensemen and things like that. That's what I notice. Not so much teams taking liberties with us, but just the emotion that Moose can bring to a game.
John, you call the pressure of this juncture of the season. Last one here, and thanks for the time. The pressure, I caught this with the press conference last night. The pressure of this juncture of the season, the best time of the year. And I love this part. Competitive times require competitive men. Is that the preach to the guys? And does fatigue sometimes factor into, say, a lack of competitiveness?
I think it's really two ways, right? I think it's all in your mindset, right? Some people in teams feel pressure. Some teams apply pressure. We want to be a team and a mindset that we're going to apply pressure. This is the best time of the year. This is where I think it was almost in your leading question earlier of stress, but these are the best times of the year because you're not at this level, player, coach, manager, trainer, if you're not a highly competitive guy, right? So now you're in the most competitive part of the season other than the playoffs. So, that's where when I say the most competitive games bring out the most competitive men, this is what this time of year is about. So I'm excited to see us continue to move forward, continue to compete, and we're in a playoff race. So all those components are exciting. I think you got to embrace them, and then each day you got to take the game in front of you, put the one that you just played behind you, take some quick lessons out of that, and then you got to make sure you're energetic and ready, and your mindset's ready to play the next one.
And with the way you laid that out last night, then eloquently again here, well, there's another side of it, and you may not necessarily share that with the media or players or whatever, but competitive times bring out competitive men. Well, it also shows who doesn't want any part of it, and that generally would be younger players who, like, time after time after time, if they're not doing A, B, and C that's required to be competitive, well, it's in a roundabout way, it's good to learn that too, right?
Yes, it is. It's that's why you want to be able to be in these situations. That's why meaningful games down the stretch, playoffs are important, because you're continuing, as you're building your team, your organization, you're continuing to see who are gamers, who can rise to the occasion, who enjoy the pressure, who doesn't shrink, who applies pressure versus feels pressure. All those components are what this time of year is in when we're in the situation that we're in, which is a highly contested playoff race, and it's no different when you get into the postseason.
You're terrific, man. Thank you very much for the chat this week, and enjoy hopefully kicking your feet up a little bit today, and best of luck against Washington, okay?
All right, my man, we'll do. Talk to you soon.
See you. John Hynes, coach of the Minnesota Wild. Losers, back-to-back games, both on the road. The Vegas Golden Knights have they've kind of had their way against the Wild, beating them 11 of the last 13. It's interesting to note, I believe it's 2 or 3 times this year. I looked it up earlier, but, this is a schedule quirk, and it works both ways. Okay, so we're not playing the martyr card here. But the Knights have caught the Wild on back-to-back games at least 2 times this year, and maybe back-to-back with travel. And I think it might be 3 times, but, and they would tend to go. Of course, they all won last night, and evening the Wild closed on back-to-back losses. The Blues have won 7 in a row and are 2 points from sending the Wild to the peg for the first round of the postseason, and the Jets have beaten the Wild 8 consecutive times. Now you hold the 7 position, and that could send you to Vegas to hook the Golden Knights. They're 3-0 against the Wild this season and have beaten said squad 11 of the last 13. And finally, keep losing, and Calgary or Vancouver might send you home for the spring and summer. The Flames are 6 points back of the Wild with a couple of games in hand, and the Couve 7 in arrears with 1 game in hand on Minnesota. Be right back. 9 to noon is your home for head coach interviews, whether it's Kevin O'Connell on a Tuesday, John Hynes on a Wednesday, PJ Fleck on a Monday, and the beat goes on. Chris Finch joins 9 to noon weekly. We replay those chats, and the one today began with the realistic nature of the fact that the Timberwolves, Chris, are topsy-turvy right now. Why?
Yeah, our defense has fallen off. Honestly, people like to talk about how maybe our offense is sputtered here and there, but for me, it's the defense. I think we have to spend the next 2 days, and we're fortunate to have 2 days of practice here at this point in the season, 2 days in a row. We're going to rebuild our defense, and it's going to start with our ball contain, which we've been inconsistent. You probably heard me complaining about it all season. Last year we were elite. We got to get back there. Then just, I think from that, we've got to get a little bit better at, some game plan execution points, which, it's just attention to detail stuff.
This as you probably have heard, is known as the State of Hockey, and there are a lot of tried and true hockey fans who enjoy the Chris Finch interviews weekly 9 to noon. So for those who don't exactly know what high-end ball contain is, how would you explain it?
Yeah, it's simple. It's one-on-one defense. It's you and the ball. I think that's where it starts. It's like anything else. Who's going to win that battle? And if you can influence that ball and keep that ball from where it wants to go, then it creates a chain reaction of good defense, really. And that's as simple as it gets. And in basketball, it's hard. Particularly the rules favor the offense. But you got to be able to guard the 3 to 5 feet on either side of you. So if you think of yourself as, let's say, that's about a 12-foot area, you got to be able to defend within 2 dribbles. And if you can make that ball go a little bit east-west, it's a huge advantage for you.
When ball contain falls off, is effort or lack thereof generally the pinpoint problem?
I think some of it, yeah, for sure. Some of it's technique. You can drop your inside foot. You could reach and gamble a little bit too much, all of which we've been guilty of. Physicality, you got to have play with a bit of a physical nature to stand up that drive. And, we've been a little bit kind of soft when we've been hit on some of those drives. And then, So there's a number of things. It's not just effort. I think more than saying it's a lack of effort. It's about how far is your competitive spirit? Like,
yeah,
you're gonna fight all the way to the end, or you're gonna fight 85%. So
isn't that, along with our conversation last week when you went deeply into rebounding, it's the awareness. I mean, the anticipatory skills. It's just being on point with not only what's in front of you, but what's coming. Right?
Yeah, and then I think. To me, rebounding is oftentimes directly related to your ball contain, which you might say, well, how is that? But if you are not able to contain the ball, and now you forces a chain reaction of rotations, and generally, the ball gets deep, it engages your bigger guys, it forces your smaller guys to be more active on the glass, and if you're in rotations, you're trying to cover ground, and you may not be able to get there. So, so it's really the heart of great defense is winning that point of attack. And we preach it all the time, and we've been really good at it. And at times we have been this year, but, you're going to have to be really good at it in the playoffs because there's going to be a lot of times where it's just you and the ball, and that's what it boils down to.
Monday at Indiana and with Edwards' thumb, how much did you go tinkering with lineups? Specifically say in the second half when you guys were down like 8 or 10 points. I mean, how much tinkering did you do with the lineups?
I mean, I did a lot of tinkering with the lineups in Indiana, but unrelated to Anthony's thumb, it was just more like trying to find 5 guys that would click.
Right.
I mean, it didn't feel like we had any real critical mass of guys who played well that night. Rudy was probably the best, most consistent performer. But it was just trying to find a combination of guys who could string together stops and score. And we didn't have enough guys play well that night. So it was not a lot of science behind that tinkering, to be honest with you, PA. It was just, let's try this. Okay, that's not working. Let's try this. So, sometimes it gets like that, and it's not always a good place to be because, you want to be more strategic, but, we just had to find something.
Let's hit the other side of the coin, Chris, with some things that you're liking. And the way I bring it up like that because how about the Western Conference, man? I mean, since we chatted 8 days ago, they all keep losing. I mean, it's like there was a patch, you win 8 in a row or whatever. Golden State can't lose with Butler. The Clippers are on their high horse, and everybody was going great guns. And now Steph is battling a pelvic problem, missed the Miami game last night. Harden has an ankle. Jokic hasn't played in nearly 2 weeks. So despite the recent losses and with 9 to play, what are you liking about your team's lot in life?
Well, I'm liking that we do have a recipe to win. We just got to stick to it. The good thing about this time of year, PA, is you know who you are and you know who you aren't.
Right.
And if you can't, figure that out by now, or you haven't figured it out by now, then, you're probably not going to, or not wanting to at this stage. But we have a recipe that we know that wins, and we've shown that, and we just now got to get our edge back. I think that's what's happened to us. We've just lost our edge just a little bit. And of course, we haven't operated with a margin for error all season. Fortunately, to your point, teams have been dropping games. That's always going to be the case down the stretch. There's twists and turns in every season, right at the end, right up to the last day. It's why we don't, we try not to get too high or too low about things. But we do have to get our edge back mentally. I think we got to get it cranked back up, finish as strong as possible, and everything is still there for us. So I do like that. I like that as well. I like that we still have an opportunity to get into the top 6. We're certainly not afraid of playing anybody in the Western Conference, but we'd like to make it as easy on ourselves as possible by avoiding the play-in tournament.
So Chris Finch, coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, thanks to Second Harvest Heartland and twoharvest.org. And back to the defense piece for a second. So with 3 days and change to work on stuff this week, and you mentioned gives us a chance to really dive into the technique and or the wherewithal with the tenacity of the defense. So, I mean, like, how far back, like, are they doing slides? I mean, are you going baseline to baseline slides here or what?
Sure. We have no problem on brushing up on the basics, because sometimes it's the basics that let you down more than anything else. Like the fundamentals sometimes get sloppy, and, we've had such like every other team in the league, like we've had such a crazy schedule over the last several months that practice time's been at a, minimum. And so what happens then is you just, no matter how well you're playing, and sometimes the better you play, you slowly inch towards the sloppiness. And because you win some games, it's covered up and you don't really have a chance to practice. So it kind of builds on top of each other. And I think that's a little bit of where we've gotten to defensively. So absolutely, we're going to go all the way back to the basics, and we're going to build it all back up. And, you should be able to move quickly through a lot of that stuff, because, we've been doing these drills since we've been playing the game.
Right. That's terrific. How's Anthony's thumb?
It's good, man. He's good. Like, I think I didn't think he would play the other night. All credit to him for playing. He didn't shoot the ball well, but, he wasn't complaining that it was related to his thumb.
So when you re-engage and take on Phoenix here Friday, do you anticipate that laceration, this thumb deal, is like markedly better Friday?
Oh, I would hope so. I think it's one of those things that's going to get a little bit better every day. I think once the kind of the tenderness around the injury subsides a little bit, kind of should just be a little bit more muted all the time.
Hey, Chris, I was watching Rick Pitino and St. John's get bounced from the NCAA tournament, and it triggered a thought to me, because when he coached the Knicks, or maybe it was the Celtics, but why doesn't the full court press work in the NBA?
Too much skill. The players are too good.
Yeah.
Hey, let me I was talking to somebody about this just the other day, and they actually pointed out to me, and I'll just, I'll relay it. Matt Lloyd, our general manager, he says, like, our 15th guy for all intents and purposes on our roster is the University of Iowa's leading scorer and National Player of the Year.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, it just shows you how much talent there is in the NBA. And when you give that, more space, more runway, more time, all these guys can make a shot, they can dribble, make a play. There's gonna be times where a press works. There's gonna be times where a zone works. It works in periods, but to do it for a whole game and a whole season, it's just there's just too much talent on the floor, too much speed. And the other thing I would say, PA, is there's just too much green light. College coaches generally by nature they have their hands on the reins, and they're always pulling their guys back. And like, there's a couple guys out there who may not even be allowed to shoot in certain situations, or if at all.
Right.
So you're really only having to guard 3 guys. But that's not the case in the NBA. For the most part, everybody has the green light in most situations, and that makes everybody some sort of threat. So that's one. And I also feel like, to do that, you got to play, you probably have to play a really deep roster over 82 games and even out the minutes. And, you're not going to have your star players playing 26, 27 minutes because you're trying to press. They need to be on the floor another additional 10 minutes because of the value that they have to the game. I mean, it makes such a big difference to have these high leverage guys on the floor.
And so many so many big guys can handle the ball. I mean, it's like just think Naz Reid. I mean, okay, they zap you one time on a press, you change something, now you got Naz against a big, and he's going to get around him, and then that probably would lead to a run out in your favor, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you see with some of these pressing teams or these zone teams or these, certainly defense, like really, really, really tough defensively committed teams in college game. And what happens to them in the tournament is they don't lose because somebody might break their press. They lose because they can't score.
Yeah.
Like, you lose in the tournament because of variance. Somebody might get hot from three against you, but more often than not, you go really cold from three, or you can't get enough offensive into the game. That's what I saw in that St. John's game. They couldn't score.
Right.
And if you have one bad night of shooting and you're out from the tournament, no matter what. And if you're going to play a style that's going to affect your offense, like a pressing style, unless you're creating a lot of turnovers and turning it into instant offense, and you're putting your offense under a lot of pressure.
Do you watch much of the NCAA tournament? And if so, do you enjoy it?
I do watch it. I'll watch the majority of it if I can. I'll certainly check in, and it's always on in the background. I do enjoy it. It's an unbelievable sporting event. I think it's a phenomenal event. Like, it just has, this kind of this inherent built-in drama that plays out over time. It's really hard not to watch. But what I do find a bit difficult about it is like there's not a lot of name recognition. I don't know many of these players.
Right.
And whether it be through the movement, or the one and dones, et cetera. I'll start to get familiar with some of these guys during the tournament, and I'll say to the front office, hey, who should I be watching? Because I know I'll have a chance to watch.
Yeah.
And they'll hit me with some names. But it's not like the old days where, I'm all for the game being how it is, so I don't want to sound like one of those old dudes who just thinks it's better way back when. But like, you remember the days where you're like, oh my God, what's Ewing going to do in his sophomore year? Like,
right.
What's Ewing going to do in his junior year? Like Michael Jordan, like, there was another level of expectation and familiarity that you had with these teams because you knew the players and you could watch them grow.
Absolutely agree. And by the way, guess who I met Monday? I met Auburn's Johni Broome. Are you familiar?
Oh, wow.
Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, absolutely. He's I think he's a modern big. He's super talented. I think he's going to be, certainly a first round pick. He's the type of guy that will, I think, translate in the NBA, probably even have a little bit more success. Just because of his style of game will fit more closely with the NBA style. So.
Yeah, he's a Vikings and T-Wolves fan, as I learned. And Parker Fox, who played for the Gophers basketball team, knows him quite well, so he was nice enough to come on the show Monday. And he's coming up here after, I think they're going to win the NCAA tournament. So when that's done, he's going to come up here. Man, he blocks like 3 shots a game. It's pretty good. And he loves your squad. So Johni Broome, who knew? Now, it obviously would be cool if you won your final 9 games. Phoenix is here Friday, and you guys have had immense success against them back through that playoff series. But we have new people on the team now. So specifically the last 3 this season against Phoenix. Why do you guys play them so well?
Well, I think a couple of reasons. One is we've played them. We know them well. We have a personal grudge with them. That sparks our defensive competitiveness, which we were talking about in the beginning of the show.
Right.
Anything to get us back there is going to help. That's one. We've been able to kind of like figure out a bit with. Don't forget, last year, PA, they swept us in the regular season.
Yep.
And so we kind of really had to look at ourselves and figure out through that process, like, what were some things that we were doing wrong against them. So we've been able to correct some of those things. I don't really want to share what they are on the air, but yeah, so it's just, but every game is going to be different. They're playing really well. They're probably playing their best basketball of the season, to be quite honest with you.
Right.
They have won 5 of 6. They are super motivated to make to the play-in tournament. And, you can see them coming. They're getting a little bit better, and they're beating some good teams along the way, too. So it's not like they're just beating up on the schedule.
A couple more here with Chris Finch, coach of the Wolves. Nas caught fire at Indiana. Has it been challenging in any way mixing Nas, Julius, and Anthony and getting it to go the way you want?
I think early in the season it has been a little bit more challenging. I think Nas Julius combination I've talked about before has been one that's really sparked us offensively. And some of our best lineups are with those three guys on the floor together. And if you then add Dante and it's one of our, it's probably our best four-man lineup, no matter who the fifth person is.
Right.
So I think it's a lineup we got to get to more. It's funny you bring this up because I was just thinking about it the other day, just how can we tweak our substitution patterns to get to it and have it out there a little bit longer because it's been good to us. And I think it's going to help all three of those guys find a rhythm together.
You got three kids, I'll say, three younger players on your team who, with Clark and Shannon Jr. and Dillingham, they're kind of like the backup quarterback when people talk about your team away from you, where, if a quarterback has three bad games, well, then the backup's the most popular guy in the room. And if you guys lose some games, we hear a lot about the kids, so I'll frame it up like this. After the Pelicans win last week, Julius said something like during a couple of losses, team energy was down. So if you sense that to be accurate in games, do you consider using the kids who you may lose something maybe offensively and or defensively, but they're going to be spry and they're going to get out there and pump it up a little bit. Do you consider that?
Yeah, we consider that. We do consider that. We consider everything. We've had some guys who, haven't kind of necessarily shot the ball well or played their best basketball over the last week or so. And, it's certainly something that we've talked about doing more of, just throwing those guys in there and see what they give us. But there's also something to, riding out with a guy and going back to him and see if he can catch a bit of a rhythm. Too. So it's delicate, but all these things are certainly considered. I mean, Jalen Clark is an embodiment of that. He gives us those types of plays every single time he goes out there. We love the force and physicality that TJ plays with. There might be times that we could have used that in the last week. I'm not going to say there's not. These are always things you think about when you don't win a game. Rob can give us some playmaking too. So, but we're also trying to, we were trying to maintain a rhythm and it felt like we could get back there, but if things continue as they are, then everything's on the table.
Last one. Thanks for that candid answer too. With Clark, and I don't use the word elite frequently. I'm not a best or a worst ever kind of guy, but Clark's on-ball defense, man, it has some elite to it sometimes, doesn't it?
Sure does. I mean, he's got a super high care factor. Like, he goes back to, again, what we were talking about in the beginning of the show here. It's just so competitive. He just wants to win that battle. It's like, Vince Lombardi, comes down to you and the man in front of you. Like, who's going to win that battle? So he does that. He takes great pride in that. And, then he makes all the little plays off the ball too. So he's a complete package defensively. He knows who he is. He's got mental toughness. If someone scores on him, he doesn't have a pity party. He just picks him up again and tries to win the next battle.
You're fantastic, man. That was wonderful. Thank you very much for jumpstarting the show with those candid answers and the energy. And best of luck against Phoenix, and I hope to see you soon, okay?
All right, thanks, PA. Take care.
That's Timberwolves head coach Chris Finch, weekly guest. Thank you to Prize Picks. Thank you to Second Harvest Heartland for bringing us Chris Finch, head coach of the Timberwolves, on a weekly basis with PA. Final segment, 9 to noon, is next. I can't wait. Hey, all you anglers out there, you heard the spot during the break, but as a vibe this morning, I needed to mention May 28th through May 30th, I'm actually hosting a fishing trip up at Ballard's Resort. We're setting the hook.
Set the hook.
BallardsResort.com for more info. It's $575 a person. It's 2 nights lodging, 2 days guided walleye fishing by an expert. But meals, rods, reels, bait, tackle, fish, all the whole bit, it's all part of that $575, but the chance to go up to a beautiful spot, Ballard's Resort, hang out for a couple of days, check it out at ballardsresort.com.
It is 11:51. We are in deep stretch of the 9 to noon show. Some things to know. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the general manager of the Minnesota Vikings, has a free agency-related press conference that takes place at 12:30, I believe, carried during the program. Now, a week from tomorrow, I believe 9 to noon is going to get the opportunity to complete a superfecta. It's not official, but we're working on it. It would be with the Twins and their opener at Target Field, and a Vox in the batter's box, where we the plan is 9 to noon to be on the field and interview a bunch of Twins related luminaries, but the superfecta would be complete, meaning the exclusive Vikings Radio Network perch overlooking the 5 perfectly manicured practice fields, which now is 4, given they eliminated the Mike Hughes Memorial Field. Also, the owner's suite for Timberwolves practices, box in the box with the hockey team, and now box in the batter's box. That'd be a cool superfecta to complete. So hopefully that takes place next week. And Friday, I believe the show will be at the Doubletree Hotel in St. Louis Park, right off 394, for a high school Friday football feast. So some fun off-campus presentations coming your way via 9 to noon. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Paul Allen. Here comes Big Daddy Khan with that wrap on the show.
Big boy's back! Big boy's back!
Some of our takes can be regrettable. Hockey team's recent run, quite forgettable. Watching the Wolves, man, it's kind of the same story. Medved coming home to restore maroon and gold glory. Baseball squad, no more crickets. Season opener tomorrow, and we're selling tickets. I mean, above other shows, we're here to sell hope. Now, we don't perform miracles. We're not the Pope. But the Purple enjoying their spot as a team. Everything's on paper right now. A projection, a dream. Can McCarthy be special? Defy the rookie QB stat. Free agency was Amelia ordered. Fries with that. Plus, maybe a Zabel or a Booker. And keeping his jersey clean down in the pressure cooker. Front office thus far been very mum, but you'll hear Kwesi next hour right here on the Grum.
Today, EB.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.